Good morning. Finally, a president-elect. George W. Bush will become the 43rd president of the United States.
Apparently, a plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center.
We're going to take a look at videotape just moments ago of the second plane hitting the World Trade Center.
There has been another major explosion, this one in the nation's capital. There is smoke in the air over the Pentagon.
We are getting information now that one of the other buildings, Building 7 in the World Trade Center complex, is on fire and has either collapsed or is collapsing.
Building 7 I often hear about. No plane hit Building 7. Why did Building 7 come down? What do you tell people?
What is Building 7?
Or what, was it Building 5 or the building that wasn't hit by the plane? Building 7.
I have no idea. I've never heard that.
The Project for the New American Century, which is a think tank that was around in the 90s and up through 2005 or 6. There are about 17 members of this so-called think tank who were in top positions in the Bush-Cheney administration. And a couple of these guys, Feith and Wolfowitz, had earlier worked for Benjamin Netanyahu in Israel and put out a paper that advocated the same kind of program that they then put out papers from PNAC advocating. That is intense nationalism and militarism and going after Middle Eastern states with aggressive wars. There are several key papers that they published, and the biggest one maybe was in 2000 called Rebuilding America's Defenses, as if they needed to somehow be rebuilt.
This is being seen on Capitol Hill as another Pearl Harbor.
Israel's former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has publicly said the September 11th attacks have been good for Israel.
In the days after the September attacks, there were countless rumors about strange coincidences surrounding the events. One report about a group of Middle Eastern men spotted the morning of September 11th parked just across the river from New York City has not gone away. Investigation of their presence has led to questions about whether Israel was conducting espionage on U.S. soil.
It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI. Sources tell ABC News during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells.
The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advance knowledge of what was going to happen that day?
After 71 days, the 5 Israelis were deported.
Some U.S. investigators believe that there are Israelis again very much engaged in spying in and on the U.S. who may have known things they didn't tell us before September 11th.
The first part of the investigation focuses on Israelis who say they are art students from the University of Jerusalem and Bezalel Academy. They repeatedly made contact with U.S. government personnel, the report says, by saying they wanted to sell cheap art or handiwork. Documents say they, quote, targeted and penetrated military bases, the DEA, FBI, and dozens of other government facilities, and even secret offices and unlisted private homes of law enforcement and intelligence personnel. The majority of those questioned, quote, stated they served in military intelligence, electronic surveillance intercept, and/or explosive ordnance units.
Lobby, there was no lobby. So I believe the bomb hit the lobby first, and a couple of seconds in the first plane hit.
It just went ba-boom, it was like a bomb went off, and another explosion came right from it, just everyone flying.
There were numerous secondary explosions taking place in that building. There were continuous explosions.
No, the first explosion, and there was a second explosion in the same building. There were two explosions.
Okay.
There was another explosion that took place in one of the towers here. So obviously, according to his theory, he thinks that there were actually devices that were planted in the building.
And you heard the boom, 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 boom.
Floor by floor instead of popping out.
It was if they had detonated. They were planning to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
From the corner, boom, 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 boom. Just like 20 straight hits. And as the bombs were going, people just started running. And I sat there and watched a few of them explode.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
In 2002, the Pentagon was infiltrated by Mossad. They did not need any identification to get through the river entrance of the building. They went upstairs to Douglas Feith. Occasionally, they went to the second most powerful man, Paul Wolfowitz, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, and they had run of the Pentagon. Donald Rumsfeld, the Secretary of Defense, said to my boss one time, "Hell, I don't run my building. Mossad does."
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the joint staff who had used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. So I came back to see him a few weeks later. And by that time, we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today. And he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Obviously, we'd like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq. The question now is a practical question. What is the best place to proceed? It's not a question of whether Iraq's regime should be taken out, but when should it be taken out?
In 2001, Congress passed the Authorization for Military Force, giving the president broad power to conduct military operations without congressional approval. Each time, it had to do with the American conflict with Iraq. But since then, both the Obama and Trump administration used what's better known as AUMF for other purposes.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
They can't have a nuclear weapon. Very simple.
So the only way that Iran will be stopped
is if there is a credible military threat that ideally would be backed by the United States.
President Trump has just announced on social media that the U.S. has just completed 3 successful attacks on 3 nuclear sites in Iran.
If you look back to 1996, there was a study done for a fellow who was about to become prime minister for the first time. His name was Netanyahu. It was completed mostly by Americans. We later called them neocons. So they composed this thing and they called it a clean break, a new strategy for securing the realm. Okay, securing the realm. What realm? Well, the realm was Israel, Greater Israel.
מה זה?
זה הוויז'ן שלי, זה אחד הדברים שחלמתי עליהם, מפת הארץ המובטחת.
יפה.
הגיע הזמן, קוראים לזה ירושלם. אני לא נותן את זה לך, אני מעניק את זה לך כדי שתיתן את זה לארצך שרה.
תודה רבה.
אתה מתחבר לחזון?
מאוד.
באמת?
מאוד.
זה ישראל השלמה.
There is no possibility of conducting a